Hello and welcome everyone. Here we are coming at you with another episode of the Dust 2 US podcast show, whatever the hell this is. I never remember. Should really figure that out. I am your host, erstwhile and long-suffering North American CSGO fan, Joe Tolkien Fanatic Cardali. We got Cole Exner McHenry on paddles.
Hello.
Cole, say hi. And then here as Ghost, we have another Joe, Joseph Muenster Lima. Lima or Lima? Like the
Lima.
bean?
Yeah, you had it right
Lima.
the first time.
Nice.
Coach of Party Astronauts. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me, guys.
Of course. Of course, currently you are the coach of Party Astronauts, premier team in North America, formerly known as Hiko, formerly known as New England Whalers, formerly known before that as Party Astronauts once again.
Full circle.
So a lot of people probably don't know like your background in CS before got into this coaching gig. So let's start off there by going into the back. Your first like recorded matches on HLTV, right, are with Vikings, and that was like season 28 in Premier, I think. But obviously you didn't just like pop up in Premier or in Advanced one day. So what was your like journey like before that season?
So initially, my interest in Counter-Strike was just as a casual player. Just like everybody else, I was just playing matchmaking, meeting people, making friends. And eventually I met some friends who were interested in the ESEA League. And I used to follow their matches, and eventually they asked me if I wanted to just come in and like be in the server with them and just see what it was like in the server. And I started taking an interest in like the coaching perspective by just watching their matches and seeing things go down like from the more like bird's eye view position. Eventually they started winning and taking the game a little more seriously, and because of that I started taking coaching more seriously because I thought there was actually something there. And that was when we formed the Vikings initially with like Hybrid, Wiggy, Sidestep, Terrorize, and Calm. We made our way through main. Took us like 3 seasons to finally make Premier. And that's when I was like, okay, there's actually something here, like maybe there's something to this coaching gig. Like maybe there's a chance we get signed by an org. Maybe we actually like are competitive in the division. But unfortunately, the team kind of fell apart after our first season of Premier, or well, it was MDL back at then. And I took a break from the game because I didn't really see myself being able to jump over to another team with people I didn't really know that well and I hadn't been playing with. I decided to go back to school, go back to work. And eventually one day, Sidestep joined Party Astronauts. And they were looking for a coach at the time. That was like 2 seasons later after I left. And he suggested me as coach to Ben Lee, who was the IGL at the time. And they said, sure, why not? Like, we need a coach, and he sounds like a cool guy from what you're telling us. And here we are today. The rest is history.
Yeah, you've kind of been rocking with the same kind of general core of players ever since, which is not the most common thing, certainly in North America, but even in CS as a whole, you kind of very rarely see people sticking together over almost 2 years now, right? Because that was like early 2019 when you linked up with them. Do you still keep in touch with any of those Vikings guys? Like, obviously, Com went on to have some success in Valorant. That's like the most notable one from that crew, I would say. And then Brett was like, part of a later iteration of Vikings, I guess. But I forget if you were involved at that point. But obviously, he's still
I was out at that point. Yeah.
Okay.
I definitely still stay in touch. Me and Sidestep are pretty much best friends. I talk to them all the time. Wiggy and Hybrid, they kind of like fell off the grid, went and did like real life stuff.
Sure.
Com, obviously, found some success in Valorant. He's gotten pretty big as a streamer, like built a pretty decent audience. So a lot of success there, but I still drop by and I say what's up to him every once in a while whenever I have the chance. And then Terrorize, I actually don't even know what happened to him.
Real life comes for all of us, right?
Yeah.
Unfortunately. You linked up with Party Astronauts in early 2019, like March or so. You had some decent success. you guys made it to the season 31 Global Challenge, which I think is probably the first place that we met each other at that
Yeah, it
Global
was.
Challenge,
Yep.
which was in Dallas. Excuse me. And then you kind of ended the year with a win at Frag 14, where we also ran into each other, I think. But you did that whole thing with no org, right? So like, what? Try to take us back to what it was like in 2019. Just playing that entire year without any organizational support.
Back then it was just all fueled by the love of the game. Just like being with a group of guys that are all working hard to just prove ourselves, show that like we have what it takes to like compete at the top of NA Premier. Um, People were just working hard, practicing every day, trying to get the best scrims we can, and yeah, we got some really good wins. We made it to Global Challenge, where unfortunately we didn't really do so well. There's a lot of really, really good teams there. Um, but yeah, it was a great experience. It's pretty much all the only thing I was doing it for was for the experience back then. Uh, I had been working part time when we were going through that period as a team, so money for me wasn't really an issue. I was able to like fund all my expenses and still be able to do the coaching thing on the side and
Mm-hmm.
have fun with it. And I loved it. I loved every minute of it, even winning or losing. Like it was just all for the ride.
Mm-hmm. And just for like context, what were you doing part time at that time? And you mentioned school before. What were you going to school for, or did you go to school for? I guess.
Uh, yeah, back then I was in school for criminal justice. I ended up
Mhm.
taking some time off to kind of put more energy into coaching because I didn't think I would have been able to do coaching and part-time work and school at the same time.
Mhm.
Um, so I took time off from school. I kept working because obviously I needed to be making money. I couldn't just not have anything in my bank account and just
Sure.
only play video games. So
If
I
only.
kept going with part-time work and coaching whenever I came home from work. It was
Mhm.
basically like I woke up every single day at like 6 a.m. to go to work. Then I got off work around like 4 or 5, and as soon as I got home from work, it was like practice was already starting. I was late here and there as well, but
Mhm.
yeah, like I didn't regret a single minute of it. I loved every minute of it.
Take note, boys and girls at home. Dedication begins outside of the server. Bring it in from the outside. But it sounds like you never, or you at least have not yet finished that criminal justice degree, or.
No, actually, no, I never went back and finished it. There
Mhm.
was when I left Party Astronauts for like half a year, um, when people left and joined other teams and did their own thing.
Mhm.
I did go back to school for 1 semester, so I did that. But then probably like 6, 7, 8 months later, Ben messaged me and said that they were looking for a coach again, and
Right.
they had an org this time. So I decided, hey, what the heck? Like, it's gonna pay me a little bit of money. I can still keep working too on the side because it's not
Mhm.
like a huge salary, right? Like the Whalers wasn't. I'm not gonna sit here and pretend like we were making a ton of money.
Right.
Um, but it was something, like something on top of what I was already making, and it was
Sure.
nice to finally, get paid for the work that I was doing. Because back then, like I was just doing it for fun, and finally being recognized as like my work is valuable, it felt pretty good.
Mhm. Something certainly better than nothing
Oh
in
yeah.
most cases. So that's good. So what we're talking about now is like we're in like the later half of 2020, right? When you link up with now the New England Whalers, which has some familiar faces on
Mhm.
it. Walk us through kind of that period of the team.
Yeah, I mean, Whalers was a wild time for us. Like, I didn't really know most of the team. I knew
Hmm.
Ben and Josh because I'd played with them on Party Astronauts,
Hmm.
but the rest of the guys were all new to me. So just kind of getting to know that part of the team and then also like figuring how they were as players and like understanding how the team is playing because at this point they were also taking it a lot more seriously than we were when we weren't getting paid, of course, because
Yep.
when you're getting paid you kind of push yourself a little bit harder. Um so yeah, it was wild. We were doing really well. Like in regular season, we probably dropped like two maps or one map,
Hmm.
and then we made it pretty far into playoffs.
Yep.
I think we were like quarterfinalists the first season, and then semifinalists or finalists the second. So
Hmm.
yeah, we had a lot of great wins. We were easily one of the top teams in the division. People were calling us one of the favorites. We were qualifying for events, which I had never done in my career before that,
Right.
except for Global Challenge. Like we were a part of some DreamHack events. We were a part of IM New York, where we managed to beat a team like Furia, who at the time was like number 7 in the world, which is a huge win for us. And
Mhm.
like accomplishing stuff like that kind of makes you realize that uh, there's always a next step, and it's always possible to get there as long as you put in the right amount of work.
Mhm.
So like winning against Furia made us realize like, okay, like this is a legit team. Like we have the pieces here to probably make pro. Like we're top in our division. Like we're one of the favorites to win and make a pro league spot. We're beating a team like Fury in a best of 3. Like it was a pretty convincing win too. So it's like, okay, like maybe we buckle down, maybe we really start taking this seriously. We start putting in like even more time than we already were. Um I started taking less hours at my job so that I could put more time into coaching,
Mhm.
and then that's when we started getting hit with the financial issues of the org. And
Mhm.
towards the end of our MDL season, that's when they gave us the news that they weren't going to be able to continue paying us, and yeah, things just went downhill from there. Like
Yeah.
it's a lot of stress, and we just couldn't finish it out in the
Right.
same. We just couldn't keep our performance at the same level that we were showing before.
Yeah, understandable. I mean, obviously, we have the whole backdrop of obviously COVID-19 going on throughout the entire year. So there's no like, yeah, these dream hacks we're talking about are obviously not happening on land. They're happening online. And
Yeah.
yeah, really ending the year on a sour note with the situation that fell Whalers. We had Diego on here a while ago. I
Mhm.
think kind of before all that happened. And even well, we kind of spoke about like just the difficulties of being a North American based org. There's like a lot of sponsorship opportunities that are not available to the orgs in North America because of gambling restrictions, alcohol restrictions, tobacco restrictions, you name it. Like all the lucrative things that make people money are pretty regulated when you're talking about an audience that's a large part is underage, right? So that's an issue. But fortunately, you guys were like not without a home for too long because you linked up
Nope.
with High Coast
Hmm.
in January, and of course we know how that story ended with its own issues. But for a while, that was good. You had like a little Brazilian experiment going on at some point. So again, walk us through kind of the time with High Coast and what that looked like from the inside.
Yeah, High Coast was a really interesting experience for me as a coach because I got to work with like very different play styles than I had previously worked with.
Mhm.
Before High Coast, when we were Whalers, we were a pretty like strat reliant team. Um, we did a lot of like prep work, a lot of dry running, a lot of like taking things from other teams. Um, but now with RCF and Boo and that whole lineup, like we sort of shifted into a more like defaulty reaction based play style.
Mhm.
So going from helping my team develop like strats and stuff like that to like kind of trying to build better fundamentals and have a better like macro understanding of the game
Mhm.
was an interesting transition for me because I had never done it before. I never had really looked at the game that way.
Mhm.
Um, and yeah, it was a lot of fun. Just it felt like I was learning a whole new side of the game that I had loved. Like I love this game, and it's like a whole part of the game that I didn't even think
Mhm.
about before. So it was very fresh. Having High Coast as an org was great. Like they were super like willing to come in and like getting contracted and signing everything was like really quick, really
Mhm.
easy. Like they were super eager to get into the NA scene.
Mhm.
So there was no like hiccups there. There was no like my focus was all on the game, and it felt really good to be able to do that because being signed to Hikos, I was making more money than we were on the Whalers, so I was able to quit my job. I wasn't in school, so I was putting 120% right into Counter Strike, and I had never been able to do that before. So it was a lot of fun, and it felt really good.
I definitely want to follow up on that, but I want to go back just a few minutes when you're talking about kind of like the difference in styles between kind of the Whalers period and the High Coast period. So I'm in what I'm reading into this is that like, is it the case that a lot of that that prep heavy and like counter stratting, is that coming from DJ primarily? Because like obviously like when you brought RCF in and Boo, right, DJ kind of went out. So was that like kind of the change in the dynamic there, or where would you say that came from?
No, I mean, DJ has always been a fan of like that more prep heavy style, but I mean, he's on the team now, and we're playing
Yep.
the more defaulty reaction based now too. But back then it was mostly just because that's how we knew how to play. Like we had never really had exposure. Like we never had a player that was a more like defaulty reaction style player on the team. So it's just kind of how the roles and the play styles of the individuals kind of worked out. But then when we brought in Rodrigo RCF, he's a very defaulty reaction based player. He's very much playing off of his instincts, playing off of timings, playing off of just a very like in the moment style of play. Um, and he kind of exposed us and showed us how like that style can be good, and he really helped us like learn how to apply that to our previous play style and kind of mesh the two styles together.
And how was the communication with RCF and the rest of the team?
It was great. RCF's English is very good. There was no trouble in communicating whatsoever.
Nice. Cool. What was I? Oh, so you mentioned, okay, so you're getting paid more on High Coast than you are on Whaler, so you quit your job. You're focusing even more on coaching. So like, walk us through what that day would look like for like yourself and like the team as a whole during that period.
As like an average like
Yeah.
day. Okay. Yeah, so for me, I tended to get up earlier than everybody else. I was always a morning person because I had been working my entire life.
You're an actual
I never
functioning adult.
Yeah. Yeah, so I was still on my part-time work sleep schedule. Waking up at around like 7, 8 a.m. I would go through my daily morning routine, my own personal routine, just like work out, eat breakfast, shower, all that stuff. And then after a few hours, I'd get on, watch some demos, schedule some scrims, whatever I needed to do that day for the team. I would just get it out of the way as early as possible. Analysis for like an upcoming event or an upcoming match, I would do all that as early as I could. That way, I could have like maybe like a couple hours before our practice time to just hang out, chill, maybe play a game or two with some friends, just watch some videos, watch a TV show, movie, whatever, just relax. Um, then we'd get on for practice, usually around like 3 between 3 and 5 East, depending on when I could schedule the scrims that day. We'd practice in the server. We'd watch demos together, whatever we wanted to do that day. Maybe watch an old match back that we played that we lost or won, see what we did right, see what we did wrong. We'd do that for about 2 hours usually. Um, then we'd take a few minutes to just relax, take a break, mentally reset, and then we'd go into scrims. What I would try to schedule was 2 scrims, an hour break, and then 2 more scrims after that. But when it ended up happening towards the end of the season, obviously with not as many teams practicing anymore, um, turned up turned out to be like 2 scrims, and then we'd talk about stuff for like another hour afterwards, and then we'd be done for the night. Or I'd maybe be able to get 3 scrims in a row if I was lucky, and then we'd be done for the night. So we usually ended around like 8 or 9 East at night, and then the guys would go off and they would either relax after playing or go QFPL or whatever they felt like doing that night.
And obviously, like, this is all structured around whenever your officials are, whenever. Like,
Yeah,
would you guys generally prac and scrim on like official? Well, would you prac on officials days and not scrim? Is that generally how that
We
would
would do both. We would just do it at we would do less of it. So if we had a premiere match, um we would still do like an hour and a half of server time, just kind of talking about whatever maps we think we might play in our official, dry run some stuff, just make sure people remember their nades, all like the basic stuff, nothing too crazy, nothing too in depth, because I don't
Mhm,
want people to have to try and remember that stuff like right when we go into a match.
mhm,
Then I try and get us like one scrim, normally against as best of a team as I can, just to warm up, just to get a good practice in, just so people can, feel comfortable holding their mouse that day. They're not just going into a match completely dry.
sure.
Then I would give us an hour break. It wasn't my decision. It was like kind of a unanimous decision to just have some time before the match, just so people can chill, wind down, not stress. Just have a little time to themselves and take a breather, and then we would go into our matches after an hour break.
Sure, makes sense. You guys, as high coast, so in this year to date, you guys have had a fair amount of success in cash cups, right? I think
Mhm.
you won
Two.
two and placed third in one other one,
And that
second in
We've
one.
gotten some
the
seconds
Mythic
and
Cup as
thirds here and
well
there, yeah.
in
Yep.
January.
Yep, Mythic Cup as well. So it's been like all in all, aside from the Hiko situation, it's been like a
Mhm.
pretty, I guess, lucrative-ish year for you guys. So that's nice.
Yeah,
Congrats.
thank you.
Um, I want to go back again to something you were talking about before, which is kind of like the concept of like always leveling up and there always being like something next,
Mhm.
right? So like you guys are obviously in the upper echelon of North American teams. However, like when you're doing like fine and catch cups and like these smaller events, but when you're getting to like these dream hacks or global challenge back in the day, like you guys haven't really been able to find that next gear, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
What do you think? Well, I guess what is like your guys like realistic next goal for that next step that you want to take, and like what do you think is gonna like unlock that for you guys?
Right now, where we are as a team is still pretty up in the air. I mean,
Hmm.
we just only recently formed, like not even a month ago.
Yep.
DJ played with us before, but that was a while ago. It was a different style. He wasn't here for the whole transition into the defaulty reaction-based style, so we're still getting him accustomed to that.
Hmm.
Um, we haven't played with Viz before. We haven't played with Gage before, so it's still like we're still finding our feet as a team right now. Solely based off of individual skill, we consider ourselves a top premier team.
Hmm.
But obviously, it takes more than that to be a top NA team. So we're still building our foundation. The next step for us is to just keep practicing and keep getting those reps in, keep working out the kinks, keep working on the mistakes, and just ironing out our play style so that we can be one of the top NA teams. And then hopefully from there we can start contending for those top spots in events and in Premier and maybe make Pro League.
Sure. Awesome. Cool. Moving on to our next topic here. Kind of like yeah, pretty much directly as a result of some of the coach bug abuse that we saw last year. Obviously, like the rules for coaches have been changed in like the ongoing RMR series, or the RMR events
Mhm.
going forward. Um, you know, what are your thoughts, like I guess, on that whole situation and now like these direct fallout from that as it pertains to your role?
Yeah, it sucks. um, the RMR events, if I had been allowed to coach, would have been our first officials where I was actually in the server with the team.
Hmm.
But obviously, I couldn't be in the server with them, so it just sucks that I had to just sit back and just watch them struggle in those RMR qualifiers
Right.
because I really wish I could have been there to help them as much as I could. I don't know if my help would have helped us win, but I feel like if I had been there, we probably could have done even slightly better. So
Hmm.
yeah, I mean, it sucks that Valve is being so strict on these coach rules. I understand why people abuse something, and Valve never really liked coaches in the first place, so we kind of like coaches as a whole, all the ones that abused it kind of gave them a reason to just kick them out.
Hmm.
Um, and I wish that Valve hadn't painted all coaches with such a broad stroke just because of that incident. But yeah, there. I mean, where I'm at, like my position, like there's really nothing I can do about it. So I just have to sit back and take it, you know. And it sucks that I can't really have any say in any of it.
Yeah, I mean, do you think there are like any sort of, or like what do you think would be reasonable, um I guess, checks and balances to put in place for, people in your position to make sure that, that sort of thing is not happening, again, or, not the same exact thing but something similar? Like, what, I guess, what would you be willing and up for, to do to, paint yourself as being clean?
I'm willing to do anything. I mean, I'm already recording all of our matches for
Hmm.
our own purposes, like to review and listen to our own communication and stuff like that.
Hmm.
So I'm more than willing to record for a tournament organizer or for Valve personally, like whatever they want. I'm willing to use face cams during events. A lot of events have been using like forcing players and coaches to use cams, otherwise they get fined.
Hmm.
I'm more than happy to do that. Um, I mean, it's just like there really isn't much else you can do as a tournament organizer in like this online era,
Right.
except have recordings and cameras. Um, yeah, I'm willing to do all of it, to be honest.
Hmm.
Whatever it takes to get me in the server during a major event.
Yeah, no, I mean it has to obviously it has to be disorienting for the players too, right? Because they're used to having you there in your ear, and that's like, having that 6 man gone
Hmm.
for arguably like the most important events that the team's going to play in the foreseeable future is uh,
Yeah.
pretty big bummer. So condolences about that. You'll get it next time. Uh,
Hopefully.
um, one place where you are allowed to coach is Premier. So obviously,
Hmm.
we're in the middle of another Premier season. You guys got off to a good start by getting your first win of this young season. What are your thoughts, I guess, so far of just the other competition in the league, and how you think things are going to shape up? I know you mentioned earlier that you guys view yourselves as one of the top teams in the league, despite your relative youth as a unit.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean the division's looking really good this year or this season. A lot of the better teams that left are back now. Pain made it into the division.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, Team One's back from Europe, so they're really strong team. Yeah, we're looking forward to playing all these teams and seeing how we stack up against teams like Pain and Team One in our side of the bracket. Yeah, Extra Salt is obvious, of course, like one of the top teams. Like they're probably the favorite to win this season. So it's going to be interesting to see who makes playoffs this season. There's also a lot more balance towards the lower end of Premier as well. So I think it's going to be interesting to see who makes it through into playoffs and who's actually a contender for playoffs. Um, Last season there was a pretty clear divide between like the very bottom of Premier and like the middle tier of Premier.
Hmm.
But this season I feel like it evened out pretty nicely, and I'd say like below like the top three or whatever in each half of the bracket, I'd say everybody's pretty evenly skilled.
Hmm. That would like certainly on the surface be taken as an indication that like the whole relegation structure is working as intended, right? Kind of
Hmm.
just like having the weak teams file out and stronger
Hmm.
teams fill in from below. So that's encouraging to hear. Are there any surprises for you thus far? As again, the season's relatively
Mm,
young.
let me pull up the see exactly who played so far. So I'd say RBG. I feel like everybody's been saying RBG recently. It's been a pretty surprising team.
Hmm.
Last season they did well, but I mean they beat us obviously in playoffs. But uh, we don't talk about that one though. But yeah, like they've been showing that they're steadily improving at a pretty rapid pace too. So even though they have 0 wins and 1 loss right now, I think they're going to be an interesting team to watch this season.
Hmm.
Um, we played against Censored for our first match, and even though we won, they seem like they're a pretty decent team. Going to be interesting to see how they do against the rest of the teams they play against.
Hmm.
Third Impact is looking pretty strong so far with 3 wins and 0 losses. So yeah, last season I remember them not being one of the strongest teams in the division, and so far they're off to a really good start. So I think it's pretty clear that they've put in some work during the break time, and it's showing in their wins so far.
Hmm.
And then the other side of the bracket is just super interesting to me because aside from Extra Salt and Triumph, I'd say the rest of the division or the rest of the conference is just like even across the board, in my opinion.
Hmm.
So I feel like anybody can beat anybody down there. Uh,
Yeah, for me, third impact are definitely like the surprise thus far. Like would not expect them to be sitting at 3-0. Like, granted, they haven't had like the strongest slate of opposition, like playing against PDHM, which is
mhm.
one of the teams coming up from advanced, and like with Mythic's ever changing roster, you kind of like slot them into the higher middle or lower upper portion of the league.
Yeah,
But with their win against RBG, like certainly that's you
yeah.
just mentioned that RBG is kind of like seeming like the next kind of up and coming thing within the scene. So definitely nothing to take away from them there. Um, on the subject of RBG, I know that Mr. Jonathan Olige Jablonowski recently tweeted out some of his thoughts about some scrims that he's been participating in. Party astronauts, notably, not on his list. So, important question: are you guys beefing with Olige right now, or
No, we just haven't had the chance to scrim them much.
okay?
So I'm sure we're one of those teams that just slipped his mind when he was tweeting
Yeah,
that. Because also Extra Saw, Bad News Bears, they weren't on his list either. So
yeah. We'll
there was
chalk it up to an
no
honest.
Triumph either. So
So he called out Pain, Godsent, and RBG. So we haven't spoke about Godsent at all yet. Obviously, like they're not playing in Premier, but certainly we expect them to be showing up in qualifiers and cash cups and all that stuff. Have you gotten a chance to check them out?
yeah, we've got a couple scrims against them.
Mhm.
I mean, they're a great team. Obviously, they have really solid players on the team. Dumao and Barton coming from former like NA Brazilian teams.
Yep.
And Taco and Phelps, who obviously like super experienced, like major players. So, Taco major winner. So, yeah, it's going to be super interesting to see how that team develops. I hope that they just don't get comfortable being an NA and actually uh, keep trying to improve, even though they're not playing against maybe the best or comparably like to what they were playing against in EU when they were there.
Hmm.
And they still take their practices seriously and keep trying to improve. Because if teams like that with players like that are trying their hardest in scrims, like actually trying to improve, then
Hmm.
I feel like that's going to trickle down to the teams that they play against, and it'll be good for everybody.
Hmm. Yeah, we can certainly hope that the rising tide will lift all boats because we're at a bit of a low tide right
Mhm.
now.
It seems
Uh,
like it's working so far. I mean, like teams like RBG are putting up some pretty good results in the RMR event. And then Elige is also calling them out as like a good team to scrim. Um, so it's clear that the practice that they're getting against the teams in North America right now is helping them improve. So
mhm.
as long as things keep going, I feel like everybody's going to get better, slowly but surely.
Are there any like upcoming advanced teams or players that you have your eye on or want to shout out, or even in Premier, like some of the more.
Advanced, I don't really follow advanced,
Mhm.
like
Mm.
honestly at all. Um, in Premiere, just the usuals, like what everybody's saying. Rbg is clearly an up and coming team. They've gone from being a relatively mediocre team to one of the playoff contenders pretty quickly. So definitely a team to keep your eye on there. And then I'd say ourselves, honestly, because we're a new team. Like people don't really know like what we're able to accomplish, like where our potential is yet, and we feel like we do know where our potential is. So we just want people to keep an eye on us and uh, just prove ourselves, you know. So we should be an interesting team to watch too.
Cool. Makes sense. Last bit of Premiere chat here before we move on. Obviously, like the elephant in the room with Premiere this season and even last season is, the still hopefully one day forthcoming ESEA report. And of course, we have, 5 players that are currently, on a moving probational kind of ban, I guess, from participating in Premiere. So, I mean, I guess what are your thoughts on that situation as a whole and how ESEA is choosing to deal with it currently?
I think that it's kind of weird situation. I don't really think there is a perfect way to handle it.
Mhm.
Until the report comes out and we actually have like evidence and like they're actually accused of something, then it's kind of impossible to handle the situation correctly. Right now, just because they're suspected of being match fixers, I think it's the right call to kind of suspend them. Um, but yeah, I mean, nobody knows when this report's going to come out. Everybody's been saying that it's going to come out soon for like almost a year now, I
Yeah.
think.
Right.
So
It's been about 2 weeks for a year now.
yeah.
The longest 2 weeks of my life.
So I mean, it sucks for those players too because I'm not gonna pretend like I know who's innocent and who's not, but what if the players that are suspended are innocent, and they're just
Mhm.
sitting here suspended and they didn't do anything wrong and they're only being suspended because of something somebody like said they did. So
Mhm.
it sucks for everybody, to be honest. And it's like some of these players that are actually suspended are good players. So like we're losing some decent players from the scene. So that obviously is a hit to skill. But I mean, if they did actually end up match fixing, then good riddance, get them out, and then we just rebuild from there.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's safe to say that when the report does eventually hit, fingers crossed, knock on wood, all that stuff, there are undoubtedly going to be high skilled, very good players that are going to be implicated.
Hmm.
Like to like what degree and intent, I think we'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's really unfortunate that this continues to drag on. It's just kind of like
Yeah.
a weight around everyone's neck to some respect, just like waiting and waiting and waiting. So that's unfortunate. But
Yeah.
ESIC, please, we're begging you. We just want.
We're all begging you.
Um, cool. So that I guess about does it for Premiere Chat. And our last topic here, we kind of already talked about it, but new party astronauts. Like you said, kind of again some new blood, some familiar pieces. I guess talk to us about how you guys arrived at this current 5 and kind of I guess what are you seeing out of specifically like the new guys that aren't you're not super familiar with and what they're like bringing to the team.
Yeah. So new additions since transitioning from Hikos back to Party Astronauts have been DJ, who played with the team before, but we still consider him a new addition since he hadn't been part of the core for almost like 3 months or so.
Mhm.
Then we have Infinite and Viz. Um, DJ is a really talented player, super smart, really mechanically gifted. He was a no-brainer when we lost our previous players of MOTM, RCF, and Boo.
Mhm.
Um, he was one of the first names to come up. Like, do we bring DJ back? Like, we know he's good. We know what he's like as a player. We know where he can be as a player. We know how good we were with him when we had him. So Yeah, we were all pretty much on the same page to bring him back. Then Gage had actually played with Ben Lee way back in the day. He was somebody who we know was always really skilled individually. He had a ton of experience, pro experience at that too. He played for some pretty big names like NRG, Space Station, all those guys.
Mhm.
So he had actually messaged Ben first and asked if he could play with us. And he was also one of the names on our list. So as soon as he asked, like we were like, yeah, come on in. Like it's a no-brainer. Like you're super
Works out
skilled and
beautifully. Yeah.
yeah, the experience is super valuable. His communication is great in game. He brings a lot of valuable information to practices. Like he's really good at coming up with new ideas. He knows where to improve. Like what he's good at, like finding mistakes and knowing how to improve them on his own.
Mhm.
So yeah, he's been a great addition so far. And then Wesley Viz has been awesome since we got him. We were looking for an entry player to fill MOTM's role. And we had done a few tryouts, but none of the players that we tried out were really fitting into that role very well.
Mhm.
Um, we needed a more like aggressive playmaker type person, somebody who's not afraid to just go in and die if that's what's needed. Um, and heard that Triumph was letting him go, so we instantly messaged him right like literally the same day, maybe even a couple days before when we heard rumors that maybe he was getting let go. We were asking him if maybe he wanted to come play with us.
Mhm.
And we tried him out, and he fit in right away. His personality meshed with the rest of the team very well. His communication's great. Very vocal, which is like super important as an entry, like being able to communicate information effectively and quickly. Um, he's got a great attitude towards the game, very upbeat, fun guy to play with. So he's really good for morale. Yeah, and he's just a great guy. So yeah, so far we're just super happy with the team we've managed to build, and we're just trying our best to improve day by day and build our foundation, and then hopefully like prove ourselves as one of the top teams in the division.
Mhm. Um, yeah, so I guess you have nothing currently really on your slate other than Premier and whatever qualifiers and cash cups and such, kind of
Hmm. Yep.
arise. So I guess it's just kind of the that standard prac scrim official lifestyle for you guys as you're hitting the grind.
Yep.
Cool.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's every day is it's a little bit easier than it was before because I'm still not working. Even though we don't have an org, like I've managed to save up enough money to kind of go at it without making any money. So
Hmm.
uh, it's been nice. It's a little more relaxing now, taking it one day at a time. Like we know, like before when we were high coast, like it was kind of a struggle to figure out what we needed to improve next. But right
Hmm.
now, with it being such a new team, like the game plan is pretty straightforward at the start, so it's pretty smooth sailing, I'd say. So it's pretty nice to not be as stressed out as when we were with High Coast towards the end.
Cool. Yeah, and of course, I'm sure like as the same with whalers, like I'm sure you were increasingly aware of Heiko's situation, so I'm sure that
Yeah.
was weighing on you guys as well. So um, cool. Well, that is everything that I had on my list to chat through. Do you have any topics that you want to hit while we're here? Any shout outs or anything? Cole, same for you. Any
Um,
questions for the man of the hour?
no, I'm just excited to see Biz on another team again. I think
Yeah, Wesley's great. I love that
yeah.
guy. He's super fun to play with. Shout out Wesley, actually.
Oh yeah, he's a
Since
cool dude.
Shout outs, Fizz. Cool.
no, yeah, I don't have anything to really shout out. I mean, just follow our team on Twitter,
Oh yeah.
partynauts_GG. I made that account and I've been running it to kind of bring awareness to our team. Hopefully, an org sees what we're doing and is willing to take a chance on us. But we feel like we're still ways to go before we are like a solid investment. So we're just taking it day by day.
So not just coach, but also social media head of
Oh, I got
social
a lot
media
of hats now.
entrepreneur.
Yeah, coach. I'm
Very
coach,
versatile.
analyst, manager, social media manager. I'm doing it all.
Nutritionist, dietitian, yeah, the whole thing.
Scheduler.
Psychologist.
Yeah.
Oh man.
All right. Well, I think that about wraps it up. So thanks to Cole for doing his fiddly knobby thing behind the scenes. Thanks, Muenster, for joining us. And thank all of you lovely people who hopefully have got to the end of this, and hopefully you learned something.
Hopefully you subscribe and like as well.
Mash that subscribe, as we say, and we'll see you next time. Hopefully there will be less of a delta between episodes 2 and 3.
Oh yeah, we got this time.
We're working on it. It's a work in progress. All right. Thanks, everyone.